Yeah, so, the reason I wanted to write the book is that, like Josie, I also feel like I look around in my life, I'm 37 years old, I'm, at the sort of most privileged end of my generation, right? I'm married, I have a law degree, and I'm still tremendously in debt. I look at where my parents were at my age, and they just seemed so much more stable and adult-like. And I'm still I'm still checking to make sure I don't overdraw my checking account on a regular basis. I'm an adult woman. and so that sense of, is there just something wrong with me? And then looking around at all my entire cohort, everyone I know, and we are all very much in that same boat, which was so different from our parents and predecessors, did make me want to explore these questions more. And then the sort of OK Boomer meme, which engendered so much pushback from boomers, and from which they felt clearly very profoundly insulted. To me, that was a really interesting moment, because it's like, oh, you guys just really don't get it. You hear on Fox News about how we're all spending our money on avocado toast and we're sensitive, and there have been Fox News headlines about how millennials are scared of plants. So I wanted the book to be a look at exactly, Bridget, what you just asked. How did we get here? And the answer to that is multifold, but a lot of it does come down to baby boomer politicians, and then politicians who were elected by baby boomers. A lot of this stuff was put into place by Ronald Reagan, and that sort of started this snowballing effect of tearing up the social safety net and frankly tearing down the ladder that allowed so many boomers to climb into the middle class. Things like affordable public education, things like, at least for white baby boomers, affordable housing, preferential mortgages, the ability to be a homeowner and build generational wealth. And what you're seeing now among millennials, and this is where I think it's important to really emphasize that there is a tremendous racial component here, is that, like Josie said, generation-wide, our futures have been stymied and our opportunities have been curtailed. And that's been true, again, because of political decisions that were made when we were small children, and because of financial explosions beyond our control. First, the Great Recession, and now millennials have also gotten hit the worst by coronavirus financial impacts. But there's also a degree to which millennials of color have been hit much worse by all of these dynamics and are much more vulnerable, again, because of these long ago made decisions that are now impacting their lives. So, kind of the best way I can explain this is you look at a millennial who was born, in 1983, let's say it was the year I was born. If that millennial is Black, that millennial's parents were much less likely to own their home than a white millennial's parents, right? Because of things like redlining, because of things like preferential or racist mortgages. So then that millennial has less family wealth to draw on when they want to go to college. And our millennials are the most educated generation in American history. We were told, go to college. That's the path to the middle class. It actually turned out that was less true than we had been promised. But if that African-American millennial goes to college, they're then going to be much more likely to have to take out student loans, and they're probably going to have to take out more. And that's what happened. Something more than 80% of Black college students took out loans. For white college students, it was closer to 70%. So you do see a big gap there. Black millennials were also more likely to be working full-time when they were in college. And that's in part because, again, you have these huge racial wealth and income gaps. So Black students were more likely to have to work not just to support themselves, but also to send money back home and help support a broader family unit. Millennials have more immigrants in our generation than any other. And so you had a lot of millennial immigrants who were also helping to support family the world over. And that just was much less applicable to your average white millennial. Once that millennial graduates from college, they're going to have more student loan debt. And then a Black millennial is still facing racist hiring and pay practices, which are even worse if you're talking about a Black woman, right? So lower pay, less chance of getting a job, even with the same degree and even with the same credential as a white millennial. You then add on to that jobs now are very, very concentrated in cities. So it's very hard to find a job in an affordable part of the United States. So chances are that millennial is going to be moving, not necessarily to New York City, but to some relatively major urban center. And what researchers have found is that even when you look at rents and what tenants are offered in rent, for similar apartments, in similar neighborhoods, Black tenants pay more than white tenants. So you're adding on this additional racial tax stressed in housing. You put all of that together, and so all of these things impact millennials, right? High cost of education, high housing costs. Rent and owning a home is now twice as expensive as it was when boomers were young adults in the 1970s. That's true for all of us. But millennials of color, Black millennials specifically, get hit with these kind of extra 1-2 punches all along on every level of this, making them more in debt, more vulnerable, and giving them fewer opportunities.